Hi everyone and welcome to the show today. It's going to be a beauty. We're going to have a look at the new iPad and its impact or expected impact on the real estate industry. We'll also have a look at security open inspections and those rings, put them away and keep them safe. We'll be heading up to Watuna Terrace to have a look at one of the largest and most spectacular properties you'll ever see. We get inside especially for you. And don't forget, we are live and interactive, so get those calls going and email us and we'll answer them at the end of the show. Well, does that look familiar? That is the new iPad. And we've been talking about it, there's been a lot of discussion about it in the papers. We have been working around the clock trying to meet the deadlines for the launch of this in Australia, and it is so exciting. So later in the program we look at the iPad and give you a brief insight on TOOP TV, a scoop of what's coming. Now the inside story during the week covers off also on pricing. The Sunday Mail had a big article about bait pricing and underquoting and so on. So we're looking at that in a moment. In fact, let's go to the streets and see what you had to say about the pricing of property in Adelaide.
I think they should be a little bit more honest. Yeah, so they put the price low so they can't get you like interested, but then when you go to auction, whatever, it's always a couple $100,000 more, and I think that's a little bit unfair, especially when you get all your finances in order.
The market is such that people have to sort of pay very high price for a house.
10 years ago sold a house in Sydney, and the real estate agent told us we'd get at least $1 million, and we were kind of swayed by that, and we went with that real estate agent and we ended up getting $790,000. So yeah, I think it's a really wrong thing to do.
It's about the agents manipulating the market.
Gee, pricing of property creates so much discussion, and of course the legislation about 2 years ago was brought in to deal with this. Still a problem around the world, but hopefully we'll sort it, and in South Australia it's nearly hopefully been dealt with. Now, joining me today is a very interesting lady. She's one of the heavyweights for the Commonwealth Bank, and why I say that, she's headhunted, and I'm going to hear, you and I are going to hear all about that in just a moment. It's Adrian Smith, the Commonwealth Bank Regional General Manager, South Australian Northern Territory. Welcome, Adrian.
Thanks very much, Anthony.
Now, first of all, how do you pronounce the name correctly?
However you like, really.
Because I'm the client.
Adrian is fine.
Right. Now, tell me about Adrian. You're from New Zealand.
Yes, I am.
And what's the background?
Sure. I arrived in Adelaide 6 weeks ago. I'm married with 2 older sons, and I've been in finance, I hate to say, 31 years. Yes, and I did start when I was 6 because I knew you were going to ask that. And I've basically worked in a variety of different areas in banking. Right, and why are you here? Because they abandoned the regional manager status years and years and years ago. What's happened with the Commonwealth Bank? Yeah, it's really exciting. It used to be the states Western Australia, South Australia, Northern Territory were together. So now Western Australia has been cut off in effect, and there's a regional general manager there. And the Commonwealth Bank certainly wanted to put a greater focus on South Australia, Northern Territory, and hence created the regional general manager role, which I think is fantastic, and it's a means of South Australia controlling its own destiny a bit more, I think. Now, Adrian, you're from New Zealand, and yes, it always fascinates me because we've got a similar kind of psyche, even though we're always competitors. I know. But what's happening with the housing market there? Oh, look, it's we were talking about this the other night, and I think the word that just keeps popping up is confidence, and I'm talking generally confidence. When I came over here, that's the one thing I've noticed is significantly different. It's a lot more positive here in terms of confidence in businesses, confidence in the housing market, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that during the GFC, Australia had the stimulus package that appeared to be pretty darn successful when you have a look at Australia at the moment, versus New Zealand, which toyed with government guarantees on retail deposits, etc. But certainly in terms of the market, in terms of unemployment, in terms of migration, it's just nowhere near as positive as what Australia has experienced. So is the market, because at one stage it was flying, is it tough there now? Tough. Tell me an example. Yeah, it's tough. I'll give you a personal example of where I'm selling a property. The government valuation on this property is $500,000. It's a cute little, I think you call it a shack. We call it a batch, and amazing water views. That property was passed in an auction at $300,000 last weekend.
300,000?
300,000. And one of the big reasons being is that tomorrow is the New Zealand government's announcing the budget. And what happened was too long ago they signalled that they're going to be making changes to property taxes. And so investors have held off. There's also a feeling that interest rates are on the rise. So first home buyers are also holding off. So the market is coming to a bit of a grinding halt.
Ooh. Now, I know there's a big difference. Over there, nearly everyone locks in on fixed rates, and over here it's the opposite. Why is that?
It's fascinating. I mean, I've been in lending a good 2 or 3 decades, and I was there when fixed rates first came in, and it really got into the New Zealand psyche. And when I headed the largest non-bank lender when I was in New Zealand, and more than 90% of our lending at one point was on fixed rates. I believe now, and I've just been reading some stats, in the New Zealand market at the moment, 70% are now going on floating, and a big reason for that is because the floating rate is a lot more attractive.
So by floating, for people here, that's variable?
Yes, sorry,
right.
That's variable. And what's also happened is the banks, when they were able to get all this cheap money, it was from the international wholesale markets, and they were able to bring back some pretty good long-term fixed rates for clients. That's not happening anymore. All those markets are closed up, and that funding is just not that easy to get. So, so now I believe more than 30% of the housing portfolios is at floating or variable. Yeah.
Now, in terms of what your observations are about Adelaide, having come in 6 weeks ago, you're in the business of funding. Are there many, stress loans that you're aware of? Or is it pretty plain sailing at the moment? And has the bank got money to lend?
Well, certainly looking at what's happened in Australia, it is similar to New Zealand in that serviceability policies that banks have generally have tightened up. I know, as an example, Commonwealth Bank doesn't do no deposit home loans anymore, and that was something that we were doing in New Zealand as well.
They were the great days.
They were the growth days, and fancy fronting up and being able to get a house without a deposit. No money, we
want a house.
Yeah, I mean it's quite interesting stuff, and even investment properties, But look, one of the things is I really like to stress is that anybody who does feel like they're under any stress with their mortgages, whether it's because of interest rates or changes in family circumstances, go and see their bank, go and see their broker, and have a chat about it. Don't leave it.
We might come back to that, Adrian. Let's go and have a look at what we're doing with the iPad now, and then we'll come back and have a few more questions and queries about what to do if you are feeling a bit of pain with your mortgage.